Cool. So update and delete is honestly not that GD hard with vanilla JavaScript. We don't need to do event listeners. We don't need to do much of anything. So by the end of this lesson, I hope that you too will be able to update models with forms and delete models with forms. All right, so the structure of both of these is almost identical. So let's start by making an API. We've hopefully done this over and over and over again. We're just lightning fast at it, so I'll need you guys to talk me through it. So give me a noun. What are we updating, deleting? Users, love it. So this will be Rails update, delete users. Cool. I'm going to Rails new API user directory. Yep. I'm going to use the right version of Rails. And then I'm going to make a user directory, whatever. Cool, so that's done. I'm going to make a client. And neat. Stop over to the user directory. And then I want one model. I want all 4 CRUD methods on it. Let's do a whip around on this. So Lily, give me somewhere to start. Yep, we're building all 4. Let's do all 5. CRUD actions for Rails.
Okay.
Give me a place to get started. Okay. So what do I need to do?
Have you created your model?
I haven't done anything.
Oh, okay.
You've seen everything I've done.
Okay. So you need to create an actual model.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can do it using controller resources. So you can create controller routes and models at the same time.
Okay. Tell me what to do.
Okay. Rails do resources. And so you have one, you're just having the user model.
Okay.
And what attributes you would like to include.
Let's do just name.
Okay, so name. Yeah, the default is a string.
Mm-hmm. We good?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, resource.
All right, cool. I got some stuff. What do we do next, Rachel?
You could go to our routes and make sure that's open.
Okay. Okay. Looking good, looking good. Let's see, Alice, what am I doing next?
You're going to check your migration
Okay. So if I go over to the migration,
and look at, and you can do Rails DB migrate.
I love it. Rails DB migrate. And we're migrated. Chisi, give me something else I can do.
You make some seeds or
Yeah, let's make some seeds. So how do I make a seed?
user create seed name and string.
All right, cool. And then what do I do to make those seeds real? Yeah. Okay, very nice. Zach Mail. What am I doing now?
Creating your controllers.
Okay. Okay, so what do I need?
So basically we'll make everything. Can you show us how to do method override, or we do that after?
It's built in.
Okay.
I think. There's been some debate about this among the instructors. I'm 90% sure it's built in. We're good? Hell yeah. We're like reading the docs rather than just doing this in like 5 minutes. We're like, no, let's really pour over the docs and really Gandalf this fucking thing.
Method override?
Hmm?
I said that we use method override in here? No?
Nope, it's exactly the way that you've done all of this stuff before.
Okay, so then we'll do like a index page.
Love it.
Def index, users equals user.all, and then render JSON users.
Love it. I'm going to wrap that too. Okay, cool. Adam, what am I doing?
I guess you want to, did you want to update or maybe just show one or create?
Yeah, all of them, all 5 of them.
Let's update.
All right.
Well, no, show one just to stay. And users, or user equals user.find.
Okay.
Rams ID,
Oh, beautiful people.
render JSON. User.
I love it. All right, what am I doing next?
Def create. At user equals user dot create. Name key is equal to params name.
Okay, and then
And I suppose you could render.
I like the way you think. And why do we want to do that?
You want to share this one or not?
What's the new piece of information that gets made when we do this? Your front end probably doesn't have. Actually, definitely doesn't have. Well, it knows the name. It came from the front end. What doesn't it have? The ID. That gets created there. So in case our front end wants to use that ID for something, we got to send it back. All right, thank you, Aaron. And Miwa, what's up?
We could do like either the opposite or
Yeah, give me one.
I don't know.
Let's do delete.
Okay, I mean, I really don't remember how to do it, but,
Okay. Make a guess.
start with like something we want to delete, so a user.
What's the name of the method?
Oh,
Destroy. Okay.
and then we'll be getting like a single user everyone for, so.
Ooh, what does it send us? We don't get the user. We get one piece of information.
Of ID.
Yes. So, what's the? Nope. User dot find. Good. And then probably want to save that. And then, meanwhile, what do I do with that user? Destroy it. So here's an interesting question. I want you to think about this for a second. I'm going to call on somebody. What do you send back? You send back the user, but that'd be kind of weird because the user doesn't exist anymore. Just send back something. Think about it to yourself for a sec. AJ, what do you think?
Message.
Sure.
Say like user was deleted, your user was deleted.
Yeah, we could totally do something like message your user was deleted. Something like that. Totally fair. We have a more concise built-in way to communicate that exact same thing though. What is it, Adam?
Status code.
Status code. So what's the status code we want to send back? No content, which is Oh, it's just no content, I guess, in Rails. Anybody know the number for no content? Nope. 404 is, I couldn't find it.
201, 202.
204. 200 series status codes it went as expected. So the most generic of those is 200. You make a GET request, it worked okay, status code's 200. You can actually use 200 for everything, but it's sort of like for each versus map, super generic. So if you have a more specific one you can use, you probably should. So 201 is created. If we made something, we probably want to send back a status code that indicates that. So we could say status created. Very nice. We destroy something. 204, no content, but it's still a 200 series message, so we're still communicating to the front end that like it went as planned, sir. It's like when the assassin comes back, is like, is it taken care of? It's like, it won't be a problem any longer. So that's a 204. And then there's a couple other 200 series status codes, but we get most of our action out of those. Update. Created gets used a lot for that one. I kind of like 203 a little bit better for that, which is, I think it's 202, I mean. Accepted. You asked me to change something and I accepted it. I think that's a little bit more semantic, but you'll see 201 used a lot. Cool. Onward. What do we got? Put? Oop. Update. The action is update. The HTTP method that matches that's put patch. Good. What does that form input come in as? We've already used it. Params. Cool. And is there another syntax we can use for this step here? What do you think, Lily? Yeah. Yeah, we have a user update method that's built in. So if we're doing little onesies, that's probably not too bad. But we could also do something like that and then save it. And so that's a lot better if we have a bunch of different properties. Update them all at the same time, so we're going to do all those different statements. Okay, it's saved? Yeah, Doug. That's a good question. It might. Rails active record update. Okay, so that has the explicit save. Oh yeah, good call. I like it. No save needed. So, yeah.
Okay.
Jeremy, how am I going to land this plane?
Oh, I have part two.
Okay. Yeah, Doug.
So is there some sort of like active record wizardry? So like obviously when I submit a form,
Mm-hmm.
I might only change like one attribute. And so like sometimes I get in a bunch of nils. They're like a only update an attribute if it is not nil kind of coolness, or if it loses all that crap. For some reason I was thinking there was a case where someone didn't specify attributes change, or I don't remember what the use case was, but there was something where like you don't want to update it if it's nil, but
Sure. So there is a way to do that. I'm not going to do it in this. And when we get to the front end of this, hopefully you'll see why that's not needed most of the time. Cool. What else?
So if you had more than one attribute,
Mm-hmm.
do they have to be in the same order as you've seen that?
Nope.
Or they-
So hashes, by definition, are not order specific. And that's the same with objects in JavaScript. Damon.
All right, so method override is included when you're not in the API.
Oh, really?
So I just sent you a Slack that you gotta add.
Okay, cool.
Because it's default when you're not in API.
Is that, you mean when you do dash dash API?
Yeah,
You don't
if
get
you
that?
do API, you don't get it.
Gotcha. Cool.
What is method override?
We're going to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
All right, so Jeremy, help me land the plane. Cool. User. Cool, very nice. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 of these things. Yeah. So as we were just talking about, you'll see created used. I sort of like accepted a little bit better, but other one's fine. Cool. So did I seed? I seeded. I am serving this. So I should be able to postman all of this noise. Users, give them to me. All right, I got some users. Can I post to users? We'll do form data instead. That's what we're going to be sending. Name is Damon. Cool, I got my Damon user back. And he's ID 4. Psych. I want to change his name to Demon. All right. Accepted. Nah, it's a little fucked up, man. But let me see if I got it right. All right, it's coming back from the show route. Let's get rid of this shit. And 204, no contact. He's gone. All right, so we got a working API. Woo! Let's make a client. So I'm going to need an index HTML, app.css, app.js, and we should know this part pretty well too. So Mike, let's keep the good times rolling. What do I need in here? I need the whole thing. How does it start? Doc type. Okay, cool. What else? Before that. Yeah. What else? Good. Which is meta. Char set. Good. Good. Cool. What else do I need in here? Title? Good. Cool. What else do I need in here, Mike? Good. Not shoulders, knees, and toes? See, teach HTML for 5 years, you come up with some pretty good jokes. Yeah. Cool. One other thing that needs to get included in here. What is it? Script. Okay, excellent. Doug, what should I do next? Index, I've done an HTML, CSS, and a Dribble script. Okay. What am I putting in here?
What's your goal?
Goal is we want a bunch of users to show up on the page, and we want to be able to add them, delete them, update them. Yeah. Okay. Oop, not JSONify it. Reverse JSONify it. We're doing this because it's JSON, not because we're turning it into JSON. We're saying, I want to turn the JSON into an object, not the other way around. Cool, very nice. Keep going. All right. I should probably serve this also. All right, let's take a look at my console and, oh no! Network error when attempting to fetch resource. What do we leave out? Course! Oh, I want to cry right now. That was beautiful. You guys are getting it. Okay, how do I do cores? Jared.
You find your course.rb file, and I'm coming out the long file and project, and then under origins, we're in the scholar, which is just basically the secret and depending on what you're trying to do with that. Save it, and go to your zip file, find your lab code, uncomment out that line, save it, and then bundle install.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Also, anytime you do a bundle install, you got to restart your server. That'll save you 4 hours of debugging one of these days. Just like, how many different ways do I have to do this? Oop, response is not defined. Come on, Coberly. All right, I got an object coming back with a key of users that's equal to an array of 3 duty daddies. So, Ben, what am I doing next?
Really back to the JavaScript, and users.
Oops. Okay. Okay. Like that. Okay, it is. Now, pause for a sec. Lock this one away. This isn't like the lesson, but you should know this. Anytime you find yourself doing this, you made a mistake. So you can also just write that as users.users. If it's a string, you don't need the braces. If you're doing that, something's wrong. Because if that's the users, then that can't be the users, because that's the users. So what's this top level thing probably more accurately called? Result's fine. So we could say result. That's fine. You could also say response. Actually, result's probably even better with that. Data. It's generic as fuck, but also kind of accurate. Let's go with result. Why not? Result.users.map. That's pretty pro. All right, I'm also gonna, if like all of this stuff is old hat to you, I'm about to drop like a super pro JavaScript move. You don't have to do this, but it's pretty cool when you do. So, you have to wrap this in parentheses for this to work, but you can destructure out the users and just do that. It's pretty cool. So that's, yeah, it's just like destructuring something when you're passing it into a function. It just rips out that key only and makes it available as a variable. If you can't get that to work, don't overthink it. That is like literally a pro JavaScript move, but I think it's cool. All right, so we're getting the users back. Evan, what am I doing next? What am I mapping? So that's eventually what I want to do. I want to get them on the page. But if I have a user object right now, what am I trying to turn that user object into? I have the individual user. I got that object right now. I want to turn the object into an element. Yeah, and then we can wrap this in a function too. So if I call that li, and then Evan, what else am I doing to that li? Sure. Love it. So we return it. Now I supposedly have an array of user elements. Evan thinks I should turn that into a function. Good looking out, Evan. I like the way you think. So we'll call this like user to element. And it takes a user and returns all of this. And elegant. Very nice. Let's see. Josh, what do you think? What should I do next? I have this array of user elements. What do I want to do with them? Append them to the page. How do we do that?
I would just make a document that body that append.
Oh, sorry, say that again?
I would do a document that body that append.
Ooh, but I want to append them to the body. Add them to a UL. I like that. So maybe I put a UL here for users. And Josh, how would I append them to that?
You would make a constant the UL.
Love it. Document query selector UL. And then what am I doing?
You want to take that UL and do a dot append the LI to it. Or
Okay.
the LI to
The LI, I have 3 LIs. That's what this evaluates to. You're almost there. One other step. So if I have an array of these and I want to do a thing to each of them, Somebody help Josh out. Not a map.
You do definitely.
For each. Ooh, that's a good question. Why?
Map transforms where for each is just going through and then adding to or
Yes, exactly. So this turned a bunch of user objects into a bunch of user elements. For each is going to take each element, poop it onto the page. So we can say something like user, and then ul dot what, Josh?
Append.
Good. So and this is really like, yeah, it's an li. Cool. And just like we did to the other one, we can also make that a function, small one. So we can say like append to ul, and it takes in an li. And if that wants a function definition, well, I have one now. And now, look how clean that reads, especially if I break them onto their own lines. That's some beautiful logic. Take the users, map them to elements, and then append each of them to the page. Yeah, Mike.
So I've been throwing my, because my append and my transform into the same function.
Ah.
Instead of using a return and breaking it into two. And I'm wondering, it works, but
Mhm.
I'm wondering if like people are gonna look at me like less sophisticated son of a bitch.
Unsophisticated some bitch. Yes, and so, but let's explore that for a sec. This is good. Yeah, why?
I guess I actually, to back up, so I don't become unsophisticated. Sometimes I think.
This is a safe place to be an unsophisticated. This is the entire point of a school.
Sometimes I feel like people compartmentalize. What's that word?
Compartmentalize?
Yeah, over compartmentalize things to have like 500 different functions and everything, when it would be just as fine leaving it in whatever, leaving it kind of in one fetch call.
Ooh. Appreciate the perspective. What else? Are there other thoughts about why we might or might not combine those two things? Let's review. What's a map? A method? What does it do?
It takes all of the elements in like one array, and then it creates another array with the same amount of elements, but transformed.
Indeed. Same number of elements, but transformed. And that's it. Not, and some other stuff. So mapping is this is a lot more like math than it is a lot of the other kinds of things that we do. And in Mod 3, we'll talk about the philosophy around all those things, called functional programming, which is made up entirely of teeny, teeny, tiny hundreds of functions and how we combine them in like kind of powerful ways. But there are all kinds of reasons we might want to turn something into an element or just generally do a transformation without also adding them to the page. So we want a standalone behavior that we can do. Is like, for example, before we add them to the page, maybe we want to map them again and do something to each one of those elements, like add an attribute or something like that. We have the flexibility to do that if it's its own function that doesn't also do a bunch of other things. And then, generally speaking, a for each is usually the very last thing we do, because side effects are things that change the application, like adding stuff to the page. That doesn't return anything. There's no return value for that. So we want to push all of those changes to the very end. Do all of your transformations, then do your change. All in one go. Great question. And that'll be a big theme in Mod 3. We'll talk about that a lot more. All right, so did the shit show up on the page? We did it! I'm going to zoom through what the create for that looks like. You should know by now. So if I have a form and I give it a method post and an action of localhost 3000 users, and I give it an input type, that's string, text. Come on, Cobra, you've only done this 500 times. So to do that, give it a name. In this case, the name is name. And we'll give it a placeholder. And let's give it a submit button. Cool. So I've got that. Does it work? Oop. What did I do wrong?
Redirect.
Yeah, we got to redirect. So we wrote our API, normal API style. We got to do it mod 2 style. So normally we would do something like that. Instead, we're going to redirect to and this is on 3001. Cool. Hey, Zach's there. I wonder if I can get Miwa on there. And Miwa's on there. All right, so we got something creating. Now, the easiest one to do next is probably going to be delete. So we can do let's go over to the client. And, ooh, this is actually a great example of when we might want to modify an element. So let's say for each one of these elements, I want to add a button that deletes. So we'll call that li. What do I need to do for each one of these users to add a delete button?
Create an element.
Yep. What kind of element? Did I say, what was that? Button. You can do button. Well, you can do button in mod 3, but really the only way we know how to send information to a server right now is form. I heard it. Form. We probably want some kind of form. Okay. What kinds of things does the form need to have? Needs an action. Cool. So we could say form.action HTTP localhost 3000. And what's the URL this needs to go to? Users to delete. Need one other part. The ID. Very nice. Where's that ID going to come from?
Needs to be like the ID for the specific user. So you can put like the, what's it called, like string interpolation in.
Yeah, I like that. So I can change that. So I can do a string interpolation. But where's that ID coming from? It would be great if it were on the LI, but I'm looking at how I made the LI right here, and I don't see it. User has an ID. I can do user.id there, but the thing I'm returning back from this is just the LI. Not a query param.
No, query of URL.
URL, the search parameter.
li.id equals user.id.
li.id. So we can give the li an ID that is the same as that ID. I'd actually recommend not doing that. You're on the right track though. That's the right idea, and you'll see people do that. I think that's mixing up concerns, and there's a better way to do it. They're called data attributes. If all you remember from this is li.id equals user.id, that's fine. But what I'd much rather you do is li.dataset.id equals user ID. And so what that'll come through as oops. So if we look at these elements, you can see those has this data ID. It's specifically indicating that like this isn't HTML semantics around uniqueness or anything like that. It's some data that I'm storing on the element. Any element. And it doesn't have to be called ID. It can be called dataset.fart. And now every one of those elements. So we can just store arbitrary data on elements. It's pretty handy. But if you just do li.id is user ID, that technically works. I just think you're mixing up concerns a little bit. Because ID and an element is technically like a part of semantics. I'm guaranteeing that something is unique on the page. So if you had two lists of users on the page, like for example, sorting them into different groups or something, you'd be violating HTML semantics, and the same ID would show up twice. All right, cool. So I'm keeping track of the ID now. So now, to make that li.dataset.ie. Cool, that works now. So I have that form. I'm going to make its method post. And now, this is where inner HTML is super handy. It is. But remember, the only two valid methods for form are get and post. We're about to bridge the gap. So the HTML for this form, what goes in it? The what? The A tag? Just the submit button. We don't need to enter anything. All we need is a button. We can give it a value of delete this user. Cool. Here's how we make this go to the delete route on our back end. Input, type, hidden. This doesn't show up on the page. It's still part of the form. It still gets sent with it, all that kind of stuff. We're going to give it a name of underscore method. And we're going to give it a value of delete. Here's somebody just say, fuck. I love that. Cool. And now, if I do li.append form, each of those has a delete button now. And if I look at that, hey, form, action, goes to all the right places, and it has this hidden input. Rails, once we get it set up, will look for the presence of that hidden input, and it will override the post method and send it where it needs to go. It's called method override.
Can you go back though? Why do you have an underscore in front of method?
Because that's what method override is specifically looking for. That keeps it from getting confused with like, maybe this is an assassination form. How do you want the assassination to take place? And you call it method. Underscores are typically reserved in programming. Like, it doesn't do anything special, it's just a character, but it's a hint to another programmer, don't mess with this. It's like a special system kind of thing. So anytime you see something that starts with an underscore, it's like it's like stripes, like bright stripes or something on an animal. It's like, maybe don't fuck with me.
No question.
Yeah.
So, real world,
Mm-hmm.
is this like a skill that we're just learning from Mod 2, or is this like a, well, I'm just saying.
That's a fair question.
How much in like the real world do we use this method override, Rails backend with, like doing
Mhm.
that?
Pretty little. Event listeners and like manually overriding submit events will end up replacing this. So you're probably just doing this for Mod 2. However, it's also not something that I made up. This is how form submission worked for like 20 years. So it's not like worthless to know this, but it's also why we haven't spent a whole ton of time on this.
Why when they did HTML5, didn't they just frickin' add every method instead of being lazy schlubs and getting close?
You can go back to 2003 and yell at the WhatWG committee and tell them it should have been included in the spec. Probably because you still, as you'll see in Mod 3, it's not just sending those methods, it's what do you do afterward. And that's going to be custom in every single application, and so you kind of have to handle it with an event listener anyway. I think if the WhatWG had its way, they'd get rid of action and method altogether and not have any kind of default submission behavior in browsers. So it's mostly a legacy thing.
Oh, backward compatibility.
Yeah, because with fetch, we can do any method we want with fetch. Good question. What else?
Val, I was just missing out. Is it value equal delete? Is that what overrides the post? Or-
Correct.
Okay.
So, in Rails, this is going to come in as params underscore method, and that's going to evaluate to delete. And that's what's going to hint to Rails that it should send it to a different action. So let's talk about how we do this in Rails. Big ups to Damon for showing what has to go in here. So we're going to go into application RB in the config. And where's the middleware? Perfect.
Quick question.
Yep.
Is app.rb and application.rb the same thing?
I don't believe so. It's app RB. I don't see an app RB.
Okay.
It's in the config folder. And then we are going to do config.middleware.use rack method override. And then, Damon, that's included automatically because rack is the gem. It just gets that class, right?
Yeah.
So I don't even need to bundle install anything.
He did not use
Good call.
it. Yeah, rack comes in there. If you look at them, I sent you another one.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can look at
So if you do Rails middleware, we're looking for method override showing up in this list. Awesome. So let's go over to our delete method and mod2ify it. Do the redirect. Let's see if it works. Sorry, Miwa. Oh, I need to restart the server. All right. Bye, Miwa. So I'm talking about assassination a lot today, too. This whole thing is getting a darker tone than I intended.
Can you show us the middleware or the application RD file?
That line. config.middleware.use rack, capital R, : method override, capital M, capital O. No need to install any other gems, anything like that. Just add that line.
Our application file looks different. than this.
You're looking for the thing that starts with config, and it goes right next to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a space between rack and method override?
Nope.
Okay.
Rack is a class, method override is a method, and the double colons is a way of saying you don't need to make an instance of rack. It's a class method.
Let me just do Rails middleware or Rails for our shell command. Good.
Oh, if you want to see whether or not it's in there, it's Rails middleware. It's optional. It's like a debugging thing. You go, do I have method override installed or not? Ah, there it is.
Yeah, I just spit out errors when I do that.
Uh-oh.
Mine too. Oh, it's not never mind. I got it.
Oh, it's because I spelled it wrong.
It's like one of my favorite jokes. So Seattle had this like Saturday Night Live knockoff called Almost Live, otherwise same kind of show, and it was all local jokes. It's like people from Ballard are all like, to be like, I think it's lame that when you call a different phone number and you call someone on the phone and you're only off by one number, you end up talking to a totally different person. Lame. Programming's kind of like that. Cool. Yeah, Miwa.
So what was it that you did in your controllers that you can debug them? Or are they just?
We're just redirecting
Oh, we're-
every time.
Oh.
Because we destroyed the user,
Yeah.
and then when we reload the page, it refetches them. So we don't actually need to send anything back. Other questions?
I think I kept up until the very end, but I can't delete.
Uh-oh. We'll debug after this. Any other questions?
Can I see your JavaScript code?
So let's take a look at what we did here. We made an LI with our user. We added a form to that. We set up the form to go to the right place. In the form, we added a hidden input, name of underscore method, value of delete. And then on the form, if we element inspect any of those buttons, we see the name that we put in, and we see this delete form. We pulled the user's ID from this data ID. Otherwise, just a regular form. Simple, simple. Other questions about how delete works? Cool. Cha-chink. Let's talk about updating, because it kind of works the same way. So with this one, I'm going to map them again. So we'll take our LI, and this one we also want a form. This is not going to be like the best looking form, but we'll kind of start it the same way. So we make a new form. It actually has the exact same URL, same method, except our method override is going to be put. The button should probably say update this user. And then what do you think goes in this input? Or in this, well, I give it away. Put an input here. What's in that input? Type text. What was that? Yeah, let's put a placeholder. Sure. Two other things that need to go in here. It needs a name. What's the name? Good. And then, here's the magic trick. What's the value? Nope. There is absolutely a value. Good guess? Yeah, Evan. Yeah, it's whatever it already is. So if I do string interpolation there and do li, I need another variable. Where can I put that variable? Put it in the data set. And if down here, that's dataset.name is user.name, well, shoot. Oops, didn't do something. Mad on 13. Good call. Oop, I'm using the interpolation twice. There we go. It is in backticks. That's fine. The HTML is supposed to have quotes. Li is undefined on line 20. Oh, you need to return the Li. There we go. All right, now check that shit out. You're pre-populating your update form with whatever the value already is. So when I submit this, I'm going to get a new value for name. And to Doug's earlier point, let's say I had a bunch of different attributes on here. Cool, well they all pre-populate with whatever it currently is. So when I submit that, there aren't any nil values. Some of them might not change. Now I'm just submitting what it already was. Pretty fucking cool. How does the placeholder know the name? How? Who can answer that? Well, when we fetched, we got back a list of all the users. We're keeping track of those on the element. And then we're using that the update form. We could also use some conditional rendering, like maybe there's a button that says update this, and it just does display none or display block on the form. You probably don't want to have.
Wait. Sorry, the placeholder's not actually displaying there.
Not until I delete that.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh.
I thought that, it's displaying the value. Right.
Correct.
And, yeah, okay.
So we're just presetting the value to what it currently is. And if we change that and submit this form, it's going to send a put request with whatever the new value is. Let's see if it works. So if I go over to my update method, let's mod2ify it. And I think Rachel deserves an exclamation point. Update this user. Now she's got an exclamation point. All right, don't get too full of yourself, Rachel.
What did you do on your controller redirected?
So the controller's redirect, it's essentially reloading the page. And when it reloads the page, it refetches. And so whatever it is in the database is what shows up on the page. Dagyo, we just updated. So let's walk through this again. Oh man, we could probably extract that into some methods too. So maybe we make one called function add update form. Takes in an li. Maybe have one that's like add delete form, and then just put these in here. So that's the update form. And this one was the delete form. I get really happy anytime like the rightward drift in code with all the indentation just gets smaller. And then these become add update form and add delete form. And then this is all that's happening on our page. We request the users, we parse the response. For each user, we turn them into an element, we add an update form, we add a delete form, and we add them to the page, so the UL. Turning something into an element, we should know how to do that, but the new piece of data that we got today is this data set thing. That's how we just keep track of JavaScript variables on elements. It's pretty cool. Adding an update form, new thing that we learned there is we can read that data set to help build the URL for this. And we learned about method override. Underscore method, and then the value of the real method that you want to use. Why do we have to do that? Only get in post. So we want to do something cool, we have to override the method. Deleting a form works the same way. We generate the URL the same way. We use the same method override. Delete buttons or delete forms don't need any other inputs. Just the submit button's fine. On the back end, nothing new here. It's the same shit we've been doing all mod 2. The only thing new was this one line to add method override.
Is that for if you do -- API? But if
Correct.
you didn't do that, what is it the same?
If you didn't do that, you'd have method override built in. You'd also be expected to build all of your forms in Rails with ERB tags. And actually, like, you couldn't use them the same way because they add a little hash to the forms that keeps other non-Rails generated forms from submitting to it as a security thing. Yeah, Jared.
So when you're creating, deleting, and updating, say you wanted to reroute you to another page after you submitted.
Yep.
Where would you do that on your back or your front end?
We could redirect to google.com. We can redirect anywhere. So yeah, this would just be /users or whatever. Yeah, totally normal if you have a separate page for creating things, and then after you recreate, you want to go back to the list of things on your front end. It's just a different URL you're redirecting to.
And that's it. Okay.
What else?
In the dot then, the second one, where you put the level down to users. Is there a word for describing what that is in JavaScript? Or is it just
Ask that again.
is like the users
Mhm.
part in the brackets? You're like just
This?
above that? Yeah.
Oh, destructuring.
Yeah.
The other way I could have done that, and the way that is probably like a little bit more fuck-up proof, is if that's result, and then this is result.users.
Yeah, I can't get mine to work, but that's probably what I'll do then.
If you do want to do it the pro way, have to wrap it in parentheses, and then inside of that, whatever thing you want to destructure out. And for that to work, you also needed to wrap your responses in a user's key. Yeah, Miwa.
Will styling work the same including like all of the elements?
Oh, yeah. So, it's a great question. So Miwa wants to know if the styling works the same with these like dynamically created elements. Yeah, totally. Users not defined. Users. All right, so let's say I want to uglify this form a little bit. I could do, oops, there, and come on, guys. All right, so maybe I want to make those forms blocks. I kind of don't know why they're not. Oh, maybe they are. Oh, they totally are. Maybe I want to make the inputs blocks. That's better. So even though I dynamically created these forms, CSS works exactly the same.
You can also add like classes and menus, right? So like form by class, form by ID.
Indeed. Works the same way. What else? Yeah.
Can you go back to the JS?
Oop. Stop talking. All together. What was that, Alice?
Can you go back to the app.js, please? And I'm just concerned about like, you make a online routine, you make li dot and then set dot ID.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you not use URL search bar?
Ooh. Why not? The URL search params. Why didn't I need those for any of this? Evan. Yep. If I was trying to get only one user, that's where that search params thing would come in. But right now, if we take a look at the URL for this. Come on. There we go. There's nothing to read in. I didn't ask for anything in particular. And that's why I would need to do that. Let's say I was doing something like, I make a show page also. And the show page works the same way. Oops. But it's only going to have one user or something. So I'll get rid of that. And I'm just going to inline this script. So I'd probably here want to grab the ID. And how do I get something out of query params? URL. Search like this?
No, URL search term needs to be together.
Ah,
And then inside the parentheses, you put document dot, yes. And dot location dot search.
like that? Window? Does document have a location or does window have a location?
It doesn't matter. I mean, it depends, but.
What do we think? Let's figure it out.
I think either one, one's more broad and one is more specific. Document is more specific than the window.
I would say window because it's a URL and not an typology that we're just talking about.
The document is like our DOM. Document and DOM, same thing. If we want to know like where the browser is window. It has information on like how wide the screen is and all that kind of stuff, including like what page we're on right now. So yeah, Windows, I like that better. All right, so let's make sure that we're like getting the right one, but then we can also do something like fetch our show route. And just to make all of this still kind of work, we'll just pretend that that's an array. And all the rest of it should still go. So now all we need to do is link to that page. So when we're making these user elements, we could also add another step in here that's like, oh no, I guess it'd even just kind of be this. Instead of text content, it'd be like inner HTML and Alice, that's where the anchor comes in. And we're probably going to show.html and then ID equals user.id. What did I mess up? Yep. Oh, and then I do one more thing to get this to work. You know, new. I like that. Start to look more right. Yeah, so we'll call that query params. And then the ID is what? And get. Cool. All right, let's see if it works. All right, so these are links now. Then it goes to show.html with a query param of ID1. not fucking bad. Yeah.
In what scenario is it okay to put like that much, like, or just JavaScript inside of your HTML file?
Like none. When you don't want to like actually do it right in front of a bunch of people. But hey, now that we have that show page, check this out. What if I take out those things? Hey, this looks a lot more reasonable, right? And now I can go to a particular page and I can do those things just for that user. Shoot, that's practically like a Mod 2 project. Yeah.
So, if you're trying to redirect to a different page and you're still having issues with forwards,
Mhm.
what would that be?
That could be that you are going to the wrong URL or you don't actually have core set up on your back end. That's kind of it. Just a sec. So the thing that you want to check is you take a look at the request that goes out. I'm going to make sure the URL is right because it's often not. But access control allow origin, this header, that's what cores is the presence of that header. George.
What if we check those already?
Check what?
What if we check that already? And like it's still not redirecting to the right page?
So let's talk. What else? Going once, twice. Okay, if your thing is not working, hang back just a sec. Elsewise, Brian's going to talk to you guys about career services. Bye.
So he's gonna talk to us.
Yeah.